Have you ever noticed how some people seem to get a strange satisfaction out of trying to break you? They poke, they prod, they say the most condescending things, waiting for that one moment when you snap. Why? Because your reaction is there. Victory. But what if you gave them nothing? Imagine standing in front of someone who just insulted you cold, calculated, and disrespectful. But instead of yelling, you lean in with calm eyes and say something so sharp, so disarming, it leaves them speechless. That's not weakness. That's power in its purest form. There's a silent art to defending yourself without ever raising your voice. It's about commanding the room without a single ounce of anger. And today, I'll show you exactly how to do it with words that are subtle, strategic, and unforgettable. Some people thrive on disrespect. They don't just stumble into rudeness, they carefully craft it like a weapon. These are the types who test your patience, push your emotional buttons, and wait, hoping you'll explode. That's the game they're playing, one where they win the moment you lose control. But here's the truth they'll never admit. When you stay calm, when you don't take the bait, you take their power away. The real strength isn't in yelling back or throwing insults. It's in maintaining composure and delivering a response so unexpected, so effortlessly poised, that it turns the tables completely. No drama, no chaos, just pure, precise words that slice deeper than any shout ever could. In this video, I'm going to share with you the most powerful comebacks you can use to shut down rudeness instantly, without ever raising your voice. If you've ever walked away from an encounter feeling disrespected, or wished you had said something better, this is for you. And by the way, if you're someone who values deep, thought-provoking insights about Stoicism, self-mastery, and how to navigate life with clarity and calm, consider joining my free Sunday newsletter. Each week, I send out practical lessons, controversial truths, and powerful mindset strategies to help you level up in every area of your life. The link is in the description, and if you're a brand looking to connect with an audience that values depth over noise, reach out via my email. Let's build something meaningful together. Now, let's begin with one of the most underrated power moves you can use in the face of disrespect. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but that's the beauty of it. When delivered with calm confidence, it becomes a verbal scalpel. There's no rage, no eye roll, no snarky comeback, just a cold, unwavering boundary drawn in a single sentence. It's not emotional. It's not aggressive. It's just a polite reminder that their opinion holds exactly zero influence over yourself. And nothing drives egotistical people crazier than being dismissed without a fight. See, the reason rude people try to talk down to you has nothing to do with helping you. And it's rarely because they believe they're genuinely right. The truth is they want control. Control over the conversation. Control over your emotions. Control over how you see yourself. They want to feel superior, like their opinion is gospel and you're just some fool who needs to listen. But when you don't argue, when you don't explain, when you just look at them, shrug, and move on, you leave them feeling powerless. That's the moment they lose. I still remember the exact day I learned this lesson. It changed everything for me. I used to believe that I had to prove myself. Every time someone questioned my choices, I felt obligated to explain. If they mocked something I was working on, I'd defend it passionately, trying to make them see the value in what I was doing. It was exhausting. There's one memory that stands out vividly because it was the turning point. I was working on a project I truly believed in. It was something that had kept me up late for weeks. I poured my energy, time, and soul into it. I skipped outings. I sacrificed weekends. I faced failure after failure and kept going. One day, I sat across from an old friend and told him what I was building. I expected encouragement, maybe curiosity. What I got was a smirk. "That's a waste of time," he said, eyes half closed with that arrogant little chuckle. "You really think anyone's going to care about that, old me?" I would have launched into a speech. Why it mattered, why I was passionate, why he was wrong. I would have tried to win his approval, but something clicked that day. Why was I explaining myself to someone who had never built anything in his life? So instead, I looked him in the eye and calmly said, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." That was it. No anger, no defense, just distance. And it shook him. That's when I realized some people don't deserve your explanation. They don't want to understand. They want control. And the moment you try to explain yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you, you've already lost. So stop trying. Walk away with your energy intact. Save your breath for people who actually listen. Because here's the thing about confidence. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's calm. It's the subtle art of not needing to convince anyone of anything. And when you carry yourself like that, you don't attract respect, you command it. Want to hear the rest? In the next section, we'll break down even sharper comebacks and psychological tactics rooted in Stoic resilience, so you'll never feel defenseless in the face of arrogance again. Stay tuned. Sometimes, the most powerful move isn't what you say, it's what you don't say. In the previous moment, we learned how a calm, simple response like "you're entitled to your opinion and I'm entitled to ignore it" can quietly flip the power dynamic. And now, let me show you exactly why that response works like a charm. After I said it to him, I simply changed the subject, and you know what happened? Nothing. He just sat there, silent. He had nothing else to throw at me. He was expecting a debate. He was ready for me to defend myself, maybe even beg for his approval. But I gave him none of that. By calmly dismissing his opinion and moving on, I stripped him of the power he thought he had. And deep down, even if he wouldn't admit it, I know he felt it. That's the beauty of this response. It hits them in the one place they least expect, their ego. Why this line works so well. This comeback is pure psychological strength. Why? Because it denies the one thing rude people crave most: your emotional reaction. They want to feel in control. They want to see you flustered, upset, offended. But instead, you give them nothing. You don't argue. You don't try to convince them. You don't even blink. You simply remind them, with a calm voice and unwavering confidence, that their opinion has no weight in your world. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. It makes things clear, crystal clear, that they can speak freely, but you don't owe them your energy. You're not chasing their validation. You're not shaken by their judgment. And here's the truth. People hate being ignored, especially when they're trying to tear you down. That's why this response is so effective. It's like holding up a mirror and showing them your opinion means nothing here. And that, for someone who thinks they're important, is a brutal realization. When should you use this line? There are moments in life where silence and dismissal speak louder than any argument ever could. This comeback is perfect for them. When someone mocks your dreams or goals, maybe you're chasing something unconventional, a new path, a new idea. a big risk, and someone laughs or says, "That'll never work." Don't explain, don't defend. Just smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." When a toxic family member judges your life choices, sometimes it's not strangers, it's people close to us, parents, siblings, or relatives who think they have a say in how you live your life. Stay calm. Don't fall into the trap of trying to win their approval. Just remind them, you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. When a co-worker belittles your ideas in the workplace, some people feed off condescension. They'll downplay your input to feel superior. If someone talks over you or mocks your suggestions in a meeting, look at them, smile slightly, and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then move on with grace and power. A hard truth you need to hear. Here's something that took me years to fully accept. Most of the people who criticize you aren't doing better than you. They're just louder, and the louder they are, usually, the more insecure they feel. They want control. They want to dominate the conversation. But underneath that noise, there's fear. Fear that maybe, just maybe, you're right. That your idea might work. That your growth might expose their stagnation. And that's what makes this response so powerful. Because it doesn't attack them, it doesn't try to argue. It just calmly reminds them, your opinion doesn't matter here. It's just noise. And I don't need your approval. A final thought, there's a quote I love, one I live by. A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. That's the mindset you need the next time someone tries to tell you how to live your life. Don't fight. Don't justify. Don't lower yourself to their level. Just smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." And go on with your day, head high, energy intact, knowing full well that your life is yours to live, and their opinion completely irrelevant. 2. If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke. This next line is devastating in the best way possible. It's clever, it's sharp, and it does two things at once. It sounds like a joke, but it cuts deep. On the surface, it comes off as playful, almost sarcastic, but the meaning underneath, brutal. What you're really saying is, you never say anything intelligent, but I'm too polite to say it outright. It exposes their empty words. Because here's the thing, rude people talk a lot, but say very little of value. They love to hear themselves speak. They dominate conversations. They interrupt. They belittle. But they rarely say anything worth hearing. This line throws that truth right in their face, without yelling, without drama. And the best part, it's hard to respond to. If they get mad, they look defensive. If they try to argue, they're just proving your point. It's checkmate. Quiet, elegant, savage. A personal story. The day I shut someone down instantly, let me tell you about Ryan. That's not his real name, but trust me, every group has a Ryan. Ryan's entire personality revolved around one thing: mocking others. He wasn't particularly smart, he wasn't funny, and he definitely wasn't successful. But he knew how to pretend. He spoke louder than everyone else. He threw in sarcastic jabs. And somehow, people laughed, not because he was clever, but because he was confident. That's how people like Ryan survive. They rely on volume and attitude, not substance. One day we were in a group conversation. I was sharing something, a simple point, nothing dramatic, just adding value to the discussion. Ryan, with his usual smirk, cut me off. "Oh yeah, because you're such a genius." Right, you know the tone. That smug, sarcastic delivery that's meant to make everyone laugh at your expense. And yeah, people chuckled. But not because it was funny, just because it was loud. Now, I had two choices. Let him get away with it, or shut him down. So, smiled, looked him in the eye, and said, "Ryan, if I had $1 for every smart thing you've said, I'd be broke." Silence. Someone in the back choked on their drink. Another guy muttered, "Oh damn," and Ryan. He just sat there, awkward, shifting in his seat, unsure how to respond. Because there was nothing to say. It was quiet, it was clean, and it was over. That line, "If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke," silenced the entire room. Ryan sat there, awkward, fidgeting, trying to come up with something to say. But there was nothing. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Just because someone speaks the loudest doesn't mean they're the smartest. Why this comeback hits so hard? This line works because it calls out their lack of depth. Without directly calling them stupid, you're not saying they're dumb. You're just highlighting the fact that they've never actually said anything meaningful. It's subtle, but devastating. It flips the dynamic. Rude people thrive by making others feel small. But this comeback, it throws their own game right back at them. And here's the beauty. If they respond, they look even less intelligent. If they stay silent, they look defeated. Either way, you win. When should you use this line? When someone constantly interrupts with sarcastic jabs, they offer no real insight, just snark and noise. This is your perfect response. When a coworker acts superior but contributes nothing of value, you know the type. They criticize everything but never bring real solutions to the table. This shuts them down instantly. When a friend constantly mocks you but never says anything intelligent, some people exist just to tear others down. Don't let them. It's time to put them in their place. A brutal truth: people who love mocking others often have nothing valuable to offer themselves. They hide behind sarcasm because they think it makes them sound clever. But in reality, sarcasm is just a mask for insecurity. So what's the best way to deal with them? Expose them the next time someone who never says anything meaningful tries to act like they're the smartest person in the room. Look them in the eye and say, "If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." Then lean back and watch them scramble for a comeback 3. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. This isn't just a comeback. It's a statement of power. It tells the other person, loud and clear, "I see what you're doing, and I'm not playing your game." Because let's be honest, some people don't want a real conversation. They're not looking for solutions. They don't care about ideas or respectful dialogue. They just want to create chaos, to insult others, to feed their inflated sense of superiority. These are the people who never truly listen. They just wait for their turn to speak. They twist every disagreement into a personal attack. You could say, "I prefer tea over coffee," and they'd act like you just insulted their entire identity. They treat rudeness like it's a personality trait. They love saying things like, "I'm just being brutally honest." But let's be real, they're not honest. They're just brutal. So why waste your energy? Why argue with someone who didn't respect you to begin with? You gain nothing by engaging. In fact, the more you respond, the more power you give them. And that's exactly what they want. A reaction, a true story. How I used this line and walked away victorious not long ago. I had a coworker, let's call him Jake. Jake didn't just occasionally act rude. He lived for it. It wasn't enough for him to disagree. He had to make you feel small in the process. He would interrupt people in meetings, dismiss ideas without offering any better ones, and throw out passive comments whenever he could. One day, during a team discussion, I shared a suggestion. Nothing major, just a simple way to improve a workflow. But before I could even finish, Jake rolled his eyes and said, "Yeah, because you're such an expert, right?" It was smug, dismissive, completely unnecessary. A few years ago, I might have taken the bait. I might have defended myself, explained my logic, or even snapped back. But that day, Jake thought I'd take the bait like everyone else, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned back, met his eyes, and calmly said, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." Then I went completely silent. You could feel the shift in the room. The air changed. Everyone turned to Jake, waiting for a comeback. But he had nothing. If he kept talking, he'd only confirm what I'd just said. If he tried to walk it back, he'd look weak. So he just sat there, fidgeting, nervous, visibly uncomfortable, searching for something clever to say. But there was nothing left. And the best part, from that day on, Jake never pulled that disrespectful nonsense with me again. Why this line is so powerful? This line is a quiet bullet. It calls out the behavior without participating in it. You're not insulting them. You're not stooping to their level. You're simply describing what they are, and that stings way more than any insult ever could. It strips them of the one thing they crave: control. People like that feed on your reaction. They poke at you, hoping to see you snap. But when you respond without emotion, just clarity and calm, it disarms them completely. It's like holding up a mirror and saying, "Here, this is what you are, and I'm not playing your game." Even if they don't say it out loud, deep down, they feel it. When to use this line when someone is clearly trying to start a fight. Don't feed their chaos. Starve it. Drop the line and walk away. When a coworker or even a boss talks down to you, you don't have to yell. Just calmly show them you're not tolerating disrespect. When a family member or close friend belittles you, some people think they can say anything just because they're close. Wrong. Respect is still required. When a stranger tries to provoke you, not every battle is worth fighting. And honestly, some people aren't even worth acknowledging. The harsh truth: some people don't argue to reach understanding. They argue to win. They don't want resolution. They want reaction. They want to see you get flustered, lose control, stoop to their level. It gives them a sick kind of satisfaction, like pushing buttons, just to watch things break. So what's the best way to deal with someone like that? Give them nothing. Say it once, with calm resolve. "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." Then turn away. Let the silence speak for itself, because the moment they realize they don't have control over you anymore, they've been already lost. For your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. This next line, it's not just a comeback, it's a reality check. Some people go through life thinking their rudeness is a form of strength, that being dismissive, arrogant, or aggressive somehow makes them alpha. But here's the truth: that kind of attitude is a one-way ticket to nowhere. Why this line hits hard: rude. People often confuse condescension with power. They think being mean equals being confident. But life doesn't reward arrogance. No one respects a person who treats others like trash. No boss promotes someone who tears down their team. No healthy relationship survives on constant belittling. And no successful person ever got to the top by running their mouth instead of their mind. So when you say, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life, you're not just silencing them in the moment, you're showing them their future. You're making them feel the long-term consequences of their behavior. And that realization, that's what cuts the deepest. A real-life example, an instant impact. Let me take you back a few years. I was working with a guy, let's call him Mark. Now Mark. He thought being rude was part of his personality, like it made him interesting. He talked down to people constantly. If you made a mistake, he'd roll his eyes instead of helping. If you suggested an idea, he'd shoot it down before you even finished your sentence. Mark was the kind of guy who thought that making others feel small made him look big. Then one day, in a meeting, he snapped at a teammate. Maybe, if you actually knew what you were talking about, we wouldn't be wasting time. The room froze. Everyone felt it. That sting, that awkward silence. But no one said a word. And that's exactly what people like Mark count on. The silence of others. But I wasn't going to let that slide. I looked him straight in the eye and said, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. He smirked at first, trying to play it off. But as the meeting went on, something changed. He wasn't laughing anymore. He wasn't as loud. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. Why? Because deep down, he knew I was right. And here's the kicker. A few months later, when promotions were announced, guess who got passed over? Mark thought skill was everything. But the truth is, no matter how talented you are, if people can't stand working with you, you're going nowhere. Why this line works so well? This line forces people to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Right now, they may think being rude gives them power. But where is that power actually taking them? Nowhere. It exposes a painful reality. They're not just annoying, they're self-sabotaging. Their behavior isn't just unpleasant. It's actively ruining their chances in life, relationships, and growth. And the best part, you're not insulting them, you're simply stating a fact. And let's be honest, facts hurt way more than insults. When to use this line when a coworker is being rude or condescending. Remind them that their behavior comes with long-term consequences. Whether they realize it or not, when a stranger acts disrespectfully in public, some people act like they can dump their negativity on the world. Sometimes, they need to be called out. When a family member constantly puts others down just because their family doesn't mean they get a free pass to be toxic. When a friend has a consistently toxic attitude, if they're always negative, critical, and dismissive, it might be time for a reality check. Final thought: some people walk around acting like rudeness makes them untouchable. But life always has a way of humbling those who think they're better than everyone else. So next time someone disrespects you, say it clearly and calmly. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. And watch them realize maybe, just maybe, they're the real problem. 5. This conversation was over before it even started. This next line, it's not just a comeback. It's a verbal checkmate. It's the kind of response that doesn't just end an argument. It erases the argument before it begins. You're telling them, you thought you were about to pull me into a fight, but I'm not even stepping onto the battlefield. Why this line cuts so deep? Disrespectful people thrive on conflict. They poke, they provoke. They try to drag you into arguments because that's where they feel powerful. But what happens when you don't respond? When you make it clear their words carry zero weight, they lose all control. By calmly saying, this conversation was over before it even started, You send a clear message. You're not playing. You're not engaging. And most importantly, they're not in control of your emotions. And let me tell you, nothing frustrates a rude person more than being ignored. A mental image, the silent slap. Imagine a bully pushing someone, expecting them to hit back. But instead of reacting, the person simply turns and walks away, completely unaffected. The bully is left standing there, powerless. That's exactly what happens when you use this line. You take away their ability to provoke, manipulate, or control you. You show them their words mean absolutely nothing to you. And that's the ultimate slap in the face. You preserve your peace. Arguing with rude people drains you. It costs energy, time, and emotional clarity. But this line, it protects your peace by shutting down the argument before it starts. Personal story and instant results. Few years ago, I worked with someone. Let's call him Jake. Jake was the kind of person who was negative about everything. Your ideas, your work, even the way you spoke. And worst of all, he loved doing it in front of others. One day during a team meeting, I suggested a new direction for a project. Before I could even finish, Jake smirked and said, "Yeah, or we could just do it the right way instead." You could feel the tension in the room. Everyone froze. Jake was waiting for a reaction. He wanted me to get defensive, to fight back, to argue, but instead, I looked at him and said, calmly and clearly, this conversation was over before it even started. Then I turned back to my work, completely unbothered. The room went silent. Jake didn't know what to do. He tried to save face, but you could see it. He was rattled. Why? Because he was expecting a fight. But instead, I took him out of the game with one sentence. Jake didn't say another word. In that moment, to me, he simply stopped existing. And from that day on, he never tried that kind of nonsense with me again. When to use this line? When someone is clearly trying to bait you into an argument, you don't owe them your time, your explanation, or your emotional energy. When a co-worker, boss, or acquaintance gets passive-aggressive, end it before it builds. One calm, clear sentence is all it takes. When a friend or family member acts unnecessarily rude, you are not required to entertain someone's bad mood, even if they share your last name. When a stranger insults you out of nowhere, some people just want attention. Don't give them a stage. Final thought: not every fight is worth fighting. Not every insult deserves your energy. Rude people win when they steal your focus, when they drag you down to their level. But they lose completely when you show them just how little they matter. So the next time someone tries to pull you into a pointless vibe argument, say it clearly. This conversation was over before it even started. Then walk away, while they sit there, stunned, realizing they just lost a battle that never even began. 6. Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately. This is for when someone's trying to sound clever, but ends up sounding desperate. Rude people thrive on control. They want to shake your confidence, make you feel small, and pull you into their storm of insecurity. But when you respond with this line, you take everything they want and toss it out like trash instantly. Because let's be honest, most of the time when someone disrespects you, it's not because they're giving helpful feedback. It's not because they care. They're not trying to help you grow. They're just speaking to hear themselves speak, expecting you to flinch. But instead of validating their words, you crush them with casual indifference. You treat them and their input as if they were so insignificant. so irrelevant that you'll forget what they said before they even finish saying it. Why this comeback hits so hard, it acknowledges them just enough to dismiss them entirely. And that stings. Rude, insecure people want you to carry their words with you, to let their insults live rent-free in your head, to make you second-guess yourself. But when you say, "Thanks for your input, I'll be sure to forget it immediately," you're telling them you just wasted your breath. Your words mean so little, I won't remember them 5 seconds from now. And that is devastating. What happens next? They freeze. They expected you to fight back, to justify yourself, to get flustered. But instead, you gave them exactly the opposite. Calm indifference. You sent a subtle but brutal message. You don't matter enough for me to argue with. And the silence that follows, that's them realizing they just got played. It protects your energy, let's face it. Some people love drama. They live for reactions, chaos, and conflict. But your peace, your mental clarity, that's worth more than their nonsense. This phrase shuts down the drama before it begins. It ends the cycle and lets you keep moving forward with calm confidence. How this works in real life. Let's say you're in a meeting. You suggest an idea, not radical, not unreasonable, just something constructive. Then here comes that coworker, the one who always finds a way to undermine you. With a smug grin, they say, interesting take. But let's leave the serious ideas to the experts. Everyone in the room shifts in discomfort. They expect you to get defensive, but you don't. You simply reply, cool, calm, and clear. Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately. Then you keep speaking like their words never existed, like they were just background noise. That response instantly makes them look foolish, because instead of rising to their bait, you rose above it. The line "thanks for your input, I'll be sure to forget it immediately" doesn't just shut down the attack, it protects your energy with grace. And sometimes, all it takes is a calm smile to completely throw a disrespectful person off balance. When a family member makes a snide remark about your life, imagine a family member or familiar acquaintance saying, "Oh, still chasing that little dream of yours? When are you going to get serious about life?" You might feel the urge to explain, to justify yourself, to prove them wrong. But you don't need to. Instead, you simply smile and say, "I appreciate the comment. It's already erased from my mind." Then you change the subject like nothing happened. You know what happens next? They feel the sting, not because you fought back, but because you didn't care. When dealing with strangers or online trolls, in public or on social media, someone throws an insult at you out of nowhere. You've heard the type, "That's a dumb idea," or "You're a joke." Instead of getting angry or engaging, you calmly reply, "Oh wow, you must have really thought that one would land. Thanks for the input. I'll forget it in about 3 seconds." The more casual you sound, the more confused and defeated they become. Why this comeback has strong psychological power. Rude people operate with a very basic formula. They insult gives, you react emotionally gives. They feel powerful, but when you don't react, and instead toss their insult aside with a calm one-liner, you dismantle the entire system. You take away the reward they were hoping for. You remind them that their words carry zero weight in your world. 7. You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Some people truly can't help themselves. They live for drama, conflict, and pointless arguments. It's like they wake up each morning, look in the mirror, and think, How can I embarrass myself today? And that's when you drop this line. You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. This comeback completely flips the script. They thought they were making you look bad, but in one sentence, you show the truth. They're only embarrassing themselves. Why this hits so deep forces them to reflect, even if they'll never admit it out loud. They were expecting you to defend yourself, to get angry, to be thrown off. Instead, this line makes them pause and think, wait, am I really making a fool of myself right now? Even if their ego won't allow them to admit it. The seed of self-awareness has already been planted. You're no longer on the defensive. You've now turned the spotlight on them in the worst way possible. If others are around, they'll also begin to notice how ridiculous that person is acting. Now, the rude person is stuck. Either walk it back or double down on their foolishness, which only proves your point even more. You're the one in control here, not angry. You're not shaken, you're calm, observant, and calling them out in a way that makes them look like the fool, not you. And the best part, you're doing it without breaking a sweat. How to use this in real life at work? A coworker keeps interrupting you during meetings, rolling their eyes and making snarky comments. Instead of getting frustrated, you pause, look at them, and say with a slight smirk, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then you continue like they don't even exist. Now they either sit in awkward silence or try to defend themselves, which only makes them look worse. With a toxic friend or family member, someone keeps throwing passive-aggressive remarks like, "Wow, you actually did something right for once." You don't flinch. You don't get emotional. You just chuckle and say, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then you go back to enjoying your day, while they sit there, realizing they just embarrassed themselves. With a stranger or an online troll, someone's being loud, obnoxious, or nasty in public or online, trying to bait you into an argument. You don't take the bait, you simply respond. "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Keep up the hard work." Then you walk away or log off, leaving them to sit with the weight of their own stupidity. The psychology behind this response: most rude people don't realize they're being ridiculous. They think they're being clever, dominant, that they're winning the interaction. But when you call out their behavior for what it is, you force them to confront an uncomfortable truth. They're embarrassing themselves, and everyone can see it. That's where the real power is. This response doesn't just shut them down, it makes them second-guess themselves the next time they try to act foolish. Because at the end of the day, dealing with rude people isn't about out-insulting them. It's about outclassing them. You don't need to yell. You don't need to argue. You don't even need to take them seriously. Because here's the truth. Disrespect only works when you let it get to you. But when you stay calm, deliver a sharp line, and walk away like their words meant nothing, that's when they feel it. That's when they realize they spent all their energy trying to bring you down, only to end up embarrassing themselves. So next time someone disrespects you, remember, you have the power to make them regret it, not by stooping to their level, but by making it crystal clear. Their words mean nothing to you. And once they realize that, you've already won.